it's Tina and I am back, and I decided it was about time I did an updated eyebrow tutorial or updated eyebrow routine so you guys can see how I've been filling in my brows. Now, I don't think it's that much different from what I've always been doing, so my old video still applies, but I feel like I may have new subscribers or people that aren't gonna search for a brow routine in my 500 videos. So I'm gonna go ahead and do this updated one, and for this video I'm actually not using my all-time favorite Anastasia brow wiz. I'm actually using a new one. This is the brow beater from Urban Decay in the shade Neutral Brown because I really love this color, and the formulation, the size of the point of the pencil is really small. It's very similar to the brow wiz. I think the point is a little bit thinner than the brow wiz, and the color is really perfect. It's the same price, but it's less product. It's 1/3 the product in brow wiz, so I still recommend brow wiz first and foremost, but I'm doing the video with the Urban Decay one because even though you get less product, I still really enjoy it and I really enjoy the color. So if you want to see how I've been doing my brows lately, then stay tuned and I'll talk to you soon. Alright guys, so I always start with a freshly groomed brow and a freshly washed face, and I groom my brows myself. I've been asked many times. I just tweeze them and follow the shape that I already have down, which has taken years to kind of get to this shape. And I just tweeze the extra hairs that may have grown over time, and I tweeze every other day or so because my hair grows pretty quickly. Sometimes I have to tweeze every day. So I just tweeze around the actual shape of the brow, and for my tweezing I actually use these tweezers. These are the Tweezerman pointed slanted tweezers. They're very sharp and they're good at grabbing little fine hairs. So this is the tweezers that I prefer, and I'll leave a link below where you can find this as well. Sometimes I'll also trim the hairs of my brows because sometimes they just grow too long outside of the shape and I do need to go in and trim them. Again, these are just Tweezerman brow scissors and they're very small and sharp, so they snip the hairs perfectly. So again, I will grab the hairs that are growing outside the area and I go all around my brows. I will go to the unibrow area. I tweeze above my brows and beneath them just to clear up any extra hair. As for the trimming, this can be tricky, and I recommend if you're a newbie to brow trimming and grooming, go and have them professionally done first by a brow specialist so they can figure out the shape for your face and give you the ideal shape, and then all you have to do is maintain them, do the upkeep. And I don't recommend waxing just because if you do wax, do it very rarely, like once or twice a year. Don't do it more than that because it will damage the skin around your brows and will cause wrinkles. So just be mindful of that. Stay away from the waxing. Threading is a good way to get your brows done, or tweezing. If you see my brow, they go straight across at the top, so I would just brush the hairs up with a spoolie and brush the hairs upwards just at the very front. And you see where the hair goes over the shape that I have? I would just go along and trim the excess and follow that sharp shape. This is specific for me. This might not be how you do your brows, but the front of my brows grow upwards. So follow the direction of the hair growth. So these grow upwards, so I trim them upwards. And by the arch and the rest of the brow, I don't really trim them too much because if you over trim, you can get bald spots. Even though this looks like it's extra hair, if you trim that, it's gonna show sparse areas in your brows that you don't want. So just groom those into place. You can use a brow gel to secure those. But at the tail, sometimes I'll just brush out, and if I have some extra long hairs, I'll just very lightly trim them and, you know, just lighten them a bit. But I don't go overboard right here because I don't want to get sparse areas just because I decided I needed to trim my brows. So now that we've covered the grooming part, let's go in and actually fill in the brows. And like I said, I always start with a freshly washed face. I haven't applied moisturizer or any face products yet. I start with my brows first. And I do this because I want a very dry area to apply my brow products, because if my skin is moisturized, the brow products can kind of move around and slip around, and I don't want that. So I apply an eyeshadow primer around my brows, and I recommend using an eyeshadow primer to anyone. Just try it out. Any eyeshadow primer that dries clear and dries flat matte will work. You have the Urban Decay original formula, you have the anti-aging version, you have the matte prep and prime. eyeshadow primer, you have the Smashbox eyeshadow primer, any of those types of primers will work. And I just apply them around my brows, so on the skin area and in the brows themselves, but I concentrate the majority of the product around my brows. Now once you have that, you can grab a spoolie. I like to grab my handy dandy toothbrush. This is just a clean toothbrush that I use for my brows. And I will work the product through the brow hairs because I want to disperse the product, make sure there's no lingering tackiness. I'm just brushing the product through, and this is also brushing the hairs into place, into the direction that they grow and into the direction that I will be filling in my brows. So once we have that down, I'm going to go in with my brow pencil. And some people stay away from brow pencils, they rather use powder. I use a brow pencil and then powder. So my brow beater from Urban Decay is the one I'm going to use today, and this is the shade Neutral Brown. This is a great brow pencil. Another one of my favorites, or my all-time favorite, is the Anastasia Brow Wiz. And if you're looking for a drugstore alternative, you have the NYX Micro Brow Pencil. These are great brow pencils. Those are my top 3. So I'm going to grab the spoolie end of the pencil. There are 2 sides to this pencil, which is great. A spoolie is very handy. Either get one on the pencil itself or get one separate. You do have them sold separately as dual-ended brushes. You have one from Anastasia that has a brow brush on one end and the spoolie, and Stila has one too with the brow brush on one end and the spoolie. So just use a spoolie, definitely use a spoolie. And again, I'm just working the product through my brows, and this is just gonna get rid of any remaining residue and again groom the hairs in place. And then we're gonna start filling them in. So start out with a very small tip, and I'm gonna start outlining the tops of my brows first because that's what I like to do. And I put my finger on my skin to hold my skin in place. I'm not tugging, I'm not pulling, I'm not doing any of that. I'm just holding the skin in place so my brows won't move around as I'm filling them in, and I can get a very taut area to work with. So I usually go along the very tops of my brows because I like a straight line across, and I just pull the product across my brow very lightly. I am pressing very lightly to pull the product across just to create a more defined outline on the top and create the shape that I want on the top. So once we have that general shape down, I like to go around the tail end and just do flicking motions to create hair-like strokes through the brow. And because you have the primer down, the product will really stick to your skin. So just do light motions just to drag the pencil through. Do light flicking motions. So you're pressing, pulling, and lifting. You're not really using a full fluid straight motion. So you're not drawing a line, but you're creating a defined line just by using short strokes. And then I'll go through the hair where the sparse areas are and do again small motions to fill in the brow area. So just fill in any sparse areas. Again, you don't want it to be too defined, but you want to create definition and a shape. Now underneath my brow, I will go and outline the arch and fill in that area again using short motions. I'm drawing a line to create that sharpness to my arch. And just follow the shape of your natural brow. You don't want to go too crazy with it unless you're creating a specific shape. And then when I get to the inner part or the middle of my brow, what I'll do is tilt my head back and I'll do hair-like strokes upwards. So the hair grows in kind of a diagonal direction. So I'm just gonna follow that direction with the pencil to create some hair-like strokes through the brow. And don't worry if the product looks a little bit heavy. Don't press too hard though. That's the key. Don't press too hard, but if we have a little bit of extra product, it's okay. So just do pulling motions to bring that product through the brow. And then once I get to the start of the brow, I'm gonna do upwards motions to go again with the hair growth. Fill that in, and at the very top, just fill in any sparse areas very lightly, and you'll have that general outline of the brow. Now I'm going in with a brow brush, and for me I use the Paula Dorf Eye Definer brush, which is a flat topped brow brush, and I'm gonna just use this, clean off any excess product, and go through the brow hairs with this, and this is going to diffuse the product and soften the line. So if we have any harsh lines, this is going to soften that brow pencil, because brow pencil can be a little bit scary, it can be a little bit harsh, it can leave lines. So just work through the product in your brow to diffuse the lines and to soften the look altogether, and you'll have a softened effect like this. And then I'm gonna grab brow powder. Now you're probably thinking, what, you're doing more than that? Yes, I'm grabbing brow powder, and I use the brow powder duo from Anastasia. This is the shade Ebony, but I'm using the lighter side of it, and I'm just gonna grab it on the brush itself, just a little bit, and work it through the brows. Now I know you're like, what? It actually does help to soften the brow because it is powder. You can use powder by itself, but I feel like I need the outline first with the pencil and then go in with powder just to fill in any more sparse areas and to really soften that brow. And then I like to go back in with the spoolie end of the brush again and just go through the brow. Again, this is gonna soften the brow and make it a little bit more natural looking. So now once you have the brows filled in, I've filled in the other one off camera, I like to go in with a concealer. Now, be very careful. Approach this with caution. Do not use a concealer that is a shade 2, 3, 4 lighter than your skin tone. It's gonna look harsh. I go in with a skin tone concealer. This is my Bright Future Gel Serum Concealer from Sephora. This is the shade Toffee. And I just apply it underneath my brows. And I just apply it, as you see, it is the color of my skin. And I'm just gonna grab a concealer brush. This is the number 18 brush from Anastasia. And I'm just gonna use that product to clean up and sharpen up the shape of the brows. So follow the shape that we created, and that will really make it nice and defined beneath your brow. And this concealer is, again, my shade, and it dries matte. You want one that dries matte. You don't want a super creamy concealer. You want one that dries matte or to a powder finish. And I'm just crisping up that line, making it nice and sharp. And I'm cleaning up any smudges that could have been beneath the brow where the product, like, you know, moved around on the skin. And I'm grabbing a blending brush. This is just my Real Techniques Deluxe Crease Brush. And going around the edges of the product just to blend that in, just to soften that. And you'll see it doesn't look harsh, it doesn't look unnatural. And I don't recommend going around the top of the brow with concealer, but if you use a skin tone color, that's obviously gonna be better. Just to cover the primer, but not necessarily to chisel out the top, because I feel that the bottom can be sharp and crisp, but you want to leave the top a little bit soft. Even though my brows look really defined, they still look natural-ish. Like, I don't know, you tell me, right? So I blend that out. And then what I like to do, just to make sure nothing looks so squared off and just really defined, I just muss up the front with my finger. Just make sure that those hairs show through. And I have pretty thick brow hairs, and they show through the product, so it looks like my brow hairs. They don't look crazy. And the brow is gonna look like that. And the last thing I finish up with is a brow gel, and I'm grabbing the MAC Pro Longwear Waterproof Brow Set in the shade Brown Ebony. And this has a little tiny brush, and what I'm gonna do is just fix some of these hairs in place. This has a rich dark brown color, so if you are a brunette like myself, or you have really dark brows like I do, like if you have black hair, I shouldn't say brunette, I should say black hair, this is a great brow color for you. And I'm just gonna fix those hairs in place that we spoke about before in the beginning that probably need a little grooming but trimming, but we don't want to trim them. We just want to make sure that they stay in place. So just use this brow gel to secure everybody. Don't put too much of this product in because it can get it can look too intense. And if they look too intense, you can always go back through with a spoolie and again soften the product. Don't do too much, just push the hairs in place. You have enough brow gel down So what you're doing now is just making sure you distribute it so it doesn't look clumpy in any areas, so it doesn't look clumpy in any areas. So I'm just using a spoolie and setting those guys in place. Alright guys, so here's the finished product. My brows are very defined. I have a very strong shape, but it doesn't look too blocky or too artificial. It still looks relatively like a defined natural. Can I use that? It's a defined natural brow. Yeah, that's what I'm gonna go with. Alright guys, so that finishes up the brow routine. Hopefully you picked up some tips and some tricks. You enjoyed this video. I find that brows are kind of the defining frame of the face. It really sets it off. Like, it can make or break your makeup, and it can make or break your face. And really, you can just slap on brows and some mascara and you can look really put together. So I think brows are crucial. So hopefully this video did help you guys on your brow journey. To all those brow sisters, power to ya, and I will talk to you soon. Bye guys.